Okay, again, we have storms on approach right now. I just doused the heck out of this. So let's say worst case situation, you only have this for dry. Okay, that's fine, no problem. Say some, you misplaced your fire pit and, tree just dumped a bunch of water on your stuff. You may want to move your fire pit if that happens. But, let's just say some weird stuff happens because that's how it is in life. Weird stuff does in fact happen. We're going to just put the dry stuff underneath there. And then we're going to add a little bit more wood, hopefully dry up top. If not, whatever we can to get that flame going up a little bit more. Okay. Now, again, small cooking fire. We're not going to do all that. It's just for demonstration purposes today. So I'll pull out this guy here, and I'm going to actually crank this all the way up just for safety and in time. Okay. What I want to do is I want to aim it right towards that dry stuff. I'm just going to keep it there until I get a decent flame coming from the fire itself, not from the lighter. Once I see that decent flame, I'm going to back off. And yes, it is that easy. Okay. The storm match, placement is everything on storm match. Along with this, you can easily burn out your entire lighter just not placing in the right spot. But if you have something to catch and you can accelerate that, oh, you can see it already went out on me. No problem. I have some embers I can now accelerate with the lighter. That's what makes the lighter so useful in these wet conditions. So now I'm just going to keep it longer until I have a decent flame, one that's going to make me proud, if you will. All right. And then hopefully that will sustain itself. And if not, again, I'll just keep trying to keep the heat in there until the heat is just so intense that it takes over the wetness of the wood and it starts to offset that damp condition that you're working in, which you're now seeing. Okay, so easiest ferro rod is the toughest without a fire starter. I will say that if you don't have a proper fire starter, this ferro rod is going to be tough. That isn't to say that you can't turn tinder or kindling or even fuel into fire starter. Okay, you can always take your little tool and shave off some dry bits of fuel of wood if you can get down to the core of the wood. That could also work as your fire starter. Another thing is if you have a camp saw, right, and you're sawing through wood, you notice the core might be a little bit dry. Move your sawing operation to a place where you can harvest some of that sawdust, and now that could be a good fire starter for you. So there are so many options out there on things and ways that you can start a fire. Ferro rod is my favorite because, as you'll see later on in this video, with the proper fire starter, this thing just it gets it going with minimal effort. But it is a little messy. And it does put out a large spark. So if you're trying to like hide, for example, for whatever reason, like you're in some austere environment, then this may not be the tool for you, nor should you be making a fire anyway. So we'll just cut that out. But anyway, yeah, it does give off a pretty big spark. So, just do keep that in mind. As you can see, this fire did sustain itself with the minimal amount of heat that we have. And it is sufficient to where, I can get a little bit of a small camping meal made out of this, at least for me. Again, if you have more people, you may want to consider maybe making a bigger fire pit. With more labor and stuff, you can usually do bigger things and better things, right? So keep that in mind. If you do have a fire where it's starting to lose flame like this, even though it is creeping back, you can always breathe it back to life again. That air we were talking about before, and sometimes just giving a little air can help. It doesn't even have to be a lot. I'm obviously compensating for my face covering here, but you really don't need as much air as you might think to get a flame going. And you can see there, it's now going quite well, quite strong. And what I like is I got some embers going for the big fire right over here, where we can set up a real nice warm fire if we need to stay warm. So I hope you got the gist of starting a fire in wet conditions, and also the safe way of having this fire, making sure you have the proper tools again to put out the fire that you started if need be. I recommend these two. Don't just go for one. I recommend both, because you never know what might happen, right? Having said that, be careful and mindful. Make sure your whole area is clear, and also have a plan for what to do if the fire gets away from you, and what you're going to do how long are you planning on burning the fire? Because you should not walk away while it's flaming up. So especially like this, even though it looks benign, I shouldn't walk away from the situation. At the very least, I need to smother it in some water and make sure it's not going to come back. So if I do want to nurture this fire, however, I'm going to grab from the parts, and this is dangerous, so I don't recommend doing this if you're not comfortable with it. That's fine. Just use the tool, but grab there and then add a little bit of heat. I might have actually blown it out, which is fine. That's why we got this handy, because we're still kind of in the process. Like, I wouldn't be cooking on this yet until I get a nice nice little chunk of embers and coal. And what I mean is that the wood has been converted into this hot coal. So until I see a little bit of that, I'm not going to use this to cook, right? But what I am going to do is I'm going to continuously feed that until that happens. So we do have some adverse weather coming in, so let's build a fire that can withstand that. All right, so now we're just going to build a big enough fire in designated fire pit. Again, making sure we got all the right safety tools. I'm going to put this big piece of fuel here, and as I basically just transplanted with the shovel the fire from over there into the pit, stomped it out, make sure that was well and cold. And then I'm going to place these across this little starter bundle that's already kind of smoking up. A couple more pieces of kindling across there, and that's my stormproof fire. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and get this thing lit as I know the weather's coming in and I can hear it. That way, if I need to cook later on, I already have a hot fire to draw from. I'm not trying to start in the rain. Now, starting in the rain is a whole different task altogether, and something that I would very much recommend you have a lighter like this for, because quite frankly, lighters like this just are kind of life-saving in that type of situation. They allow you to apply the heat exactly where you want it, quite a bit of it in a very short amount of time. And as we talked about before, you know, energy and time are very important in survival situations. So modern grunt survival, we are all about being as efficient as we can. Now the thing with this, it is a bit heavy compared to matches, and I do recommend carrying, you know, a refill bottle with it. But this particular one, been using it this whole time. It is come out fresh, and it's still got a good bit of fuel. As you can see, we haven't really used it for much long period of time, but it is good for a few fires. Unless you're in the rain, you might actually burn this thing out trying to start a fire in the actual rain. Again, positioning your fire, how things get started, that's going to make a world of difference on how well your fire is going to take off. As you can see, even those damp conditions of me just pouring the water on it, it's still dampening this fire from really taking off and being as big as it could be. It is just now starting to dry out. You can tell the steam is kind of dissipating and the flame is intensifying, which means we got a good amount of heat. And how about the timing? Because I can now hear the weather in the background, the raindrops starting to come in, and this weather is about to turn. Great thing. We're going to make sure we have all our things ready, pack away, get out of the rain into the shelter before it gets to be too late. All right, thanks for watching this episode. If you enjoyed all the ways that we started fires today, please hit the like, make a comment about different ways that you want to start a fire, or maybe that, you know, for survival reasons. Don't be getting weird in the comments, all right? Or do, I don't care. But point being is, you know, maybe comment below on different things you may wonder if it is or isn't a good fire starter, and I'll do my best to answer. You know, run around in your noggin like, hey man, what are some situations I might have to, like, on the fly start a fire? And again, glad we timed that right, because I don't know if you can tell behind me, but the weather is coming in. The canopy is doing a great job keeping it off of me right now, but thankfully we got this nice little fire right over here already going, so I don't have to worry about anything as far as, you know, building a fire directly into the rain. Again, if you are, please make sure you have something like this. If you don't, if you are going to go the ferro rod method, or the you know, the storm match method, as we saw, was also very effective. Make sure you have fire starter and dry material to start with before you try to start fire in these conditions. As you can see, and you saw earlier, you know, I mean, this thing is still building up, and if it was dry conditions, we'd have a roaring fire right now. So you can see the time difference is considerable, and you want to take that into account when you're making your your survival fires, your cooking fires, you want to make sure that you're not wasting time and energy just doing basic stuff like starting a fire. Okay, as we continue in the survival course, you're going to get shelter building like you see behind me. You're going to get all sorts of nuggets and information on affordable and easy ways to stay alive and thrive in the wild and in any environment, including urban environments. So we will cover starting fires safely in that environment as well once we get into the channel a little bit more. If you have any questions on anything, feel free to comment below. Subscribe if you want to see and know when our next episode's coming out. Thank you for watching and bearing with us this far. Stay alert, stay alive.